Something really concerning has come up in recent studies that we need to talk about. It turns out that tiny shards of plastic are actually infiltrating our brains. I know it sounds wild, but the evidence is pretty alarming. Researchers recently examined human brain samples from autopsies conducted in early 2024, and they discovered a significant increase in these plastic particles compared to samples from just 8 years ago. To give you some context, the average concentration of these tiny plastic particles in brain tissue has increased by about 50% since 2016. That means our brains today are not just made of brain cells and tissue. About 0.5% of the weight is plastic. Now, before you freak out, let's be clear. These findings don't necessarily mean that our brains are being damaged by these particles. However, it does raise a lot of questions that we don't have answers to yet. For example, do these particles just pass through our brains without causing harm? Or are they accumulating in ways that could lead to serious neurological issues down the road? We just don't know. What's even more unsettling is that these plastic shards aren't just in our brains. Studies have found them in our hearts, lungs, livers, and even in the placenta. It's like these tiny particles are everywhere in our bodies. And we're not talking about just any kind of plastic. Polyethylene, which is used in things like plastic bags and bottles, is one of the most common types found in these tissues. This kind of plastic isn't biodegradable, which means it sticks around in the environment and in our bodies. But here's the kicker. These plastic particles aren't just floating around harmlessly. They can carry harmful chemicals with them. Things like endocrine disruptors that can interfere with our reproductive systems, potentially leading to infertility and other health issues. It's like these plastics are Trojan horses, sneaking dangerous chemicals into our bodies. So, what can we do? The reality is that we can't completely eliminate plastic from our lives, but we can take steps to reduce our exposure. For instance, try to avoid heating food in plastic containers because that can release more of these particles into your food. Use a cloth or paper bag instead of plastic when you go shopping. And if you can, avoid bottled water. Some studies have found that a single liter of bottled water can contain hundreds of thousands of plastic particles. We don't have all the answers yet, but we do know enough to start taking action. Reducing our use of plastic won't just help the environment, it could also protect our health in ways we're only beginning to understand. So let's make some changes. Small steps can make a big difference.